Good evening. It's Christine Gorman, your president, and this is the December 5 general meeting of Hell's Kitchen Democrats. I'll start off by putting the minutes from our last meeting in the chat and give you all a chance to read those while we work on the agenda together. What I have for the agenda is nominations for club officers. Just a reminder that we open nominations with this meeting and then they continue through. We can still take nominations at the January general meeting, but they will then close, and then that is the election for club officers. I have communication to communicate from Richard Fife from Alvin Bragg's office that I'd like to communicate to the club. And I think, there should be some time for general discussion of political news. But what else do you want to talk about this evening? So in addition to nominations, what I have to communicate and general political news. Yes, Kat, go ahead.
I just think we should mention and reiterate that we're not having an Hkdems holiday gala.
Okay, no holiday gala for December, but stay tuned. We may have a fundraiser in the new year. Anything else to add to the agenda? Okay, so I have nominations, communications, and political discussion and announcements, I guess. I will accept a motion to approve the agenda. Anybody? Second? All in favor? All right, the agenda is approved. Have you had a chance to look at the minutes from the last meeting?
Yes.
I will entertain a motion to accept the minutes from the last meeting.
Motion to accept.
Second?
I second it.
Seconded. All in favor, raise your hand. The minutes are approved with a big thank you to Danny Rosemarin for taking them. All right, so that brings us to the main order of business this evening, which is nominations. So I'm going to turn it over to Paul from our elections committee.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for that, Christine. Just as Christine mentioned, our club elections, our annual organizing meeting is every year in January. So we re-elect our officers, directors, and at-large members. Nominations come in at this meeting to start the process. They stay open until the day of the vote. On that day, any other nominations that come in during the month time or at that meeting are accepted and put in. We close nominations at that meeting and then vote at that meeting. There's a little bit, sometimes there's some confusion because we do our endorsements of candidates for public office at our February meeting. So that's a separate process. So this is only for HKDems officers and directors. I'll also remind everybody that there are potentially 5 seats on the executive committee by virtue of the club endorsing somebody for a Democratic Party position. If that endorsed candidate wins that party seat, then they automatically serve on the executive committee. So that's why Adrian Ford and I are on the executive committee, is because we're endorsed party leaders and we're elected, and therefore we get seated. We also will seat state committee members who are endorsed and elected by our club that are not members of other clubs. And one final seat is the There is a seat for the founding president emeritus. So Marty Cummings, as the founding president of the club, is welcome to join our executive committee. And I know that they are going to be joining the executive committee in the upcoming year because they've moved back to Hell's Kitchen. And I like that because it's a reminder that this club was founded after the first Trump election. And Marty, as founding president, coming back in at this time is really a great thing to have this club go in that direction. Also in that vein, the elections committee is me and Adrian as kind of co-chairs, and then Jasper Magruder, Debo Gaffney, and Kevin McInerney have served in the election committee in the past. They will be reaching out to the people who are nominated tonight, and they'll assemble materials so that all the club members will have bios and pictures and descriptions about all these candidates so that when we vote in January, they'll be educated voters. So any questions on the process and before I put names in for consideration? All right. So, and going back to the point about this club founding at Trump's first election, this group of people that we have on this list is a great combination of new members who have never done anything and not much on the executive committee at all, a number of people from the executive committee who are staying on and continuing to serve, and some longtime former activists who are now rejoining in leadership roles. And so I'm very excited about the team we've pulled together. And notably on that, the first seat is president, and we're happy to nominate Sean Coughlin for that seat, who was one of our very first officers of our very first time ever pulling together officers. So I'm happy to start with that. For vice president, we're going to nominate Liz Keefe. For director of membership and outreach, we're nominating Leslie Babajian Murphy. For director of communications, we're going to nominate Alita Lafarge to continue in that role. For director of political affairs, we're going to nominate Kevin Collins, who did our election day GOTV operations. For treasurer, we're going to keep Barbara Connect and nominate her. For corresponding secretary, nominating Kat Lafferty to continue in that role. For recording secretary, we're nominating Dan Rosemarin to continue in that role. And then we have 6 at-large seats at this point. I think I may have mentioned, no, I didn't mention to this group. At-large seats are driven by the number of dues-paying active members, and it's a correlation between membership and number of seats so that we make sure that we maintain an executive committee that is well representative of the body of the club. Currently, there's 6 seats. We have 7 people nominated, and that may shift based on the number of at-large seats that we need at the January election. And we still have a couple of vacancies that need to be filled, and I'll get to that in a second. So the at-large nominations right now are Ruby Rims, Stephanie Jones, Shashank Shamshabad, Rob Madsen, Rich Marins, Sandy Nance, and Dan Cressman. You'll notice that there are 2 seats that we haven't filled yet, and there's some conversations going on that might juggle a few of these people around. One is the director of events, and one is the finance and fundraising director. I will point out that we've never had somebody in the finance and fundraising director position, so it's not critical that everything get filled. So that's the slate that we're nominating. I think that I can't actually make the motion to accept that list of nominations. I think someone else has to make that motion and second it.
Do we have a motion? Kat?
Oh,
Kat is
Okay.
moving, and who's seconding?
I will.
Laura
I move
is,
that we accept the nominations for the HKDems Club officers that Paul read.
okay, and Laura seconded.
Yes.
Is there discussion? This is not, yeah, go ahead, Leslie.
I just want to thank everyone, especially Sean, for taking on the helm. That's my discussion point.
Great. This is not just a reminder, it's not an elected position, but we are still looking for someone to take over management of the website. Mark Robinson has communicated to us that after 9 years, he's he needs a break. And so, yes, go ahead, Liz.
Yeah, so did Shashank ever get back to us about, he said he might have some people interested or might talk to some people? Do you know, have you heard back from him?
I have not heard from Shashank.
Mhm. All right.
Sorry,
Kat, go.
can we keep the
Yeah.
discussion focused on the motion?
Yes,
Thank you.
so, any other discussion on the nominees that have been brought up?
The final thing I'll say is if anybody knows somebody who wants to work in events or in fundraising, please reach out to me or anybody else on the elections committee. And all of you who were nominated, please keep your eyes open for communication from somebody asking you for pictures and profiles.
Okay. Not seeing any other hands raised for discussion, we're ready to vote on the motion. All in favor of accepting the nominations as read? Sorry, go ahead, Julie. Oh, okay, you're ready to
I'm
vote.
already anticipating voting.
Okay, so all in favor, raise your hands. All right, those opposed? Abstentions, the motion carries. Fantastic. So the next I have in terms of communication, Richard Fife, who is Alvin Bragg's campaign person, I guess, wrote saying that because he's now in a campaign mode, he would like to reach out and speak with the club, and wondering when we would be doing interviews for candidates. So yes, go ahead, Paul.
In the last state election cycle, what we did was CRDC and HKDems sponsored forums for all of the various contested races at state level. So my guess is that we're going to want to do something similar to that in January. And, all the levels of the seats from mayor to comptroller to DA, all those seats, we had different nights that all of the candidates came into a forum preceding our February endorsement vote. And we invited HKDems members and CRDC members to attend. Like, I remember I moderated the comptroller's forum. I learned more about what the comptroller job is than I ever needed to know or need to know going forward, so that I could moderate and ask the appropriate questions. But we'll do probably mayor, comptroller, borough president. And then, so if there's no contest for Alvin Bragg, maybe what we do is have them just come to the February meeting.
Okay, so because I will not be president at that point, I will reply to Richard Fife and kind of tell him what you just said, and then but I'll keep I mean, he wrote to my personal email, so I'll CC the Hkdems email address as well. Jackie, you have your hand up? Okay. You're muted. And Kat, you have your hand up? Go ahead, Kat.
Thank you. So Martin Luther King Day is Monday, January 20th. So I think it would be great to have any candidate for after that. And I also think just reiterating Paul's suggestion, I think it's important that and helpful when we collaborate with another club with the fora. Thank you.
Right. The new executive committee will be in place as of our January meeting, which is January 2nd. So it will be up to them to set those dates and so forth. All right. Anything? Okay, now it would be appropriate, since many of the people who have been nominated are here on the call, for them to talk a little bit about why they want to run. So putting people a little on the spot,
Yeah, shouldn't they do that when they speak in February when they're running?
You
Kind
mean,
of puts the people who haven't been nominated yet at a disadvantage if we're giving them the forum today. I don't
you
know.
mean,
It's
you mean
just
January, not February?
January. In January, I mean, yeah.
Okay. If you
I
don't
mean,
want
I don't care if they talk, but like, it just seems a little out of line.
okay, I will take that as an then
Right.
the only thing left we have to talk about is whatever political news we want to talk about. I noted that Brad Hoylman Siegel has announced that he's running for borough president. There's a whole game of musical chairs. Then the borough president, Mark Levine, is running for comptroller. The comptroller, Brad Lander, is running for mayor. People smarter than I am have suggested to me that it might be, I don't quite understand why, well, anyway, I don't know why everybody's running for what they're running for, but does anybody have any thing to say? Go ahead, Liz.
So I know we discussed this in our last exec meeting, and I understand why we have to endorse in February. It's about getting on the petition. My concern, however, is, I'm just being bluntly honest, we have a new exec committee coming in. We have to organize as a group, et cetera. We have to set up these forums, get our membership on board to see them so that we can take an endorsement vote, particularly, let's say, for the mayor, which I quite frankly don't know if everybody's going to be ready to endorse for the mayor at that point. And I understand why we have to do it technically for petitions and everything, but that is my concern. My concern is we're getting in new officers. We have to organize, talk amongst ourselves. We have to work with, this is all fine. We just don't have a lot of time. CRDC, and then somehow our club has to vote for a mayor, which I don't even know if they're even thinking about it right now. Just, that's my thought. And I know there's no way really around this. Am I correct? We can't like buy any time with this. Yeah, go ahead, Paul. I'm just, because I'm looking at you. I know. Because we've had this discussion. All right.
Yeah, it's a very legitimate concern, and it's something we struggle with all the time. The problem is the election cycle dictates when petitions can be issued, and we have to do the endorsement in February. Now, if we move the February meeting by like a week or something like that, maybe that's good. But I think you're touching on something that's very important, that all of us in this room now have to start thinking about those things and start planning on it and starting to be prepared to make those decisions. And I think that if we have enough people who've done this many times before, that we can put together the forum in January before the February meeting in working with CRDC. And if me and Adrian and Layla Logisco and David Warren from CRDC, the 4 district leaders, work together to create 3, like one candidate forum for the mayor, one forum for comptroller, one for borough president. And then the other candidates that aren't running opposed to anybody just come to our February meeting. That sort of schedule might work, but then it's incumbent upon all of us here to remind folks, like, these are big decisions we have to make, and be ready at the February meeting to make it. And also, like, Liz, you and I have worked together on these things before. You're not going to be political director, but you're going to be vice president, right? Like, you can work in your current role as executive committee member to help formulate the January plan.
I mean, because I'm looking at, so that February meeting is February 6th.
Right. And petitions can start being printed. I think they're due on I forget the dates off the top of my head, but they're due on April 1st. So we have basically the month of March to do it. And then it takes a week or 2 to get them printed. So like everybody who's, the overlap between the 2 executive committees also is probably sufficient to create some parameters and guidelines for January. And then when the new executive committee comes in, can make adjustments or adopt whatever is already planned. So I agree that it's a time crunch, but I think it's surmountable. I think it's manageable.
So there, if we were to move the February 6th meeting to February 13, that would require a vote of the new executive committee, right?
Or we could do it at general membership in January.
Or do it at the general membership meeting in January. Okay, Sean has his hand up, followed by Kat. Sean?
Yeah, I think Liz, you're absolutely right that a lot of people may not feel comfortable endorsing at that meeting, and it's going to be incumbent upon the leadership of that meeting to remind folks that not endorsing is an option. That just because you choose to not endorse now because it's too early in the process to necessarily carry petitions for that candidate, that doesn't mean that we can't, try to support those candidates later on in different ways later on in the campaign cycle when people feel more comfortable. But to your point, we just have to be very clear with folks that if they don't feel prepared at this point for the club to make an endorsement, then they should push for a no endorsement vote.
Okay, Kat, you're next.
Thank you. I think it's a great opportunity to reboot the political committee once we have our club elections, and have the political committee and the members at large and whoever else on the exec team wants to particularly do research on mayoral candidates and then send out information so that we can prepare our club members as best as we can. So I don't feel that daunted by it personally, but thank you.
Okay. Leslie, go ahead.
More of a situational question, I guess. So I understand the whole, it's important for the petitioning at the hyperlocal level, right? Or maybe borough president or that, but with mayor, I don't think it's the petitioning component of our endorsement would be as critical as, say, a council member or an assembly member that's, right in the district. And since we don't even know who's running for mayor, because there are so many names out there that either have officially declared or have unofficially declared or may declare, that for mayor, maybe we could hold off an official endorsement only because, we could say, listen, we can hold off our endorsement, but we won't be obviously there for petitioning. I don't even know if they'll need our petitioning. I don't even know if they would ask for our petitioning for that. Yes, it would help, but I think it would be better if we wait to see who the people are and then educate ourselves in some way. But I don't know, especially for a race like this.
Go ahead.
Can I just
Paul?
offer a counterpoint to that, Leslie, is that by January, every candidate for mayor will be announced and we will know them. Because if a candidate does not announce before February 1st and they're not on petitions and they don't qualify for the ballot, they ain't going to get elected. So right now, you're right. We don't know who's who and what's what, but that is going to solidify by mid-January. That's otherwise, I mean,
No, I understand that, but it won't be, I don't think it'll be in time for us to, for like forums or this or that. Like, I think then we'll be like kind of chasing our tail a little bit.
We did exactly this the last time where like, I remember Maya Wiley came to our caucus, our forum, like they know that they have to run and they know they want Democratic Club endorsements, and they will make it work in their schedules, and we make it work for us.
No, we did it for governor too. Remember they came for governor.
Yeah, we do. We make it happen. And again, Liz's point is right. And we also a few years ago debated whether we should move our club elections, like our annual organizing meeting, away from January, because January, the point that Liz just raised is like we have new members, and then on the executive committee, and then they have to suddenly pull together an endorsement meeting a month later. It's a hassle. But then we looked at all the other dates that might make sense to have our annual organizing meeting, and we couldn't reach a consensus other than to do it in January. So this is a cycle we go through every 2 years, every 4 years, and it sucks, but we do it.
May I ask you a question? Can you hear me, guys?
Yes, go ahead, Tom.
So it's my first meeting with you all. I'm a lifelong Democrat and 40-year resident of Hell's Kitchen. And this whole discussion has been about endorsements. And there's really been no discussion about policy issues at all, concerning New York City or nationally. So I'm just wondering, again, a newbie, and I'm sorry, I don't want to throw things off, but what is the vision and the mission of HK Democrats for sort of the bigger issues, policy issues here in the city or nationally? And is there a stance? Is there something I could take a look at?
Okay, Paul, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, that's an excellent question, and you're right. We're not talking about policy right now because we're talking about the endorsement process and it's the technical component. I can tell you that when we have our endorsement interviews and questions, the way we've done it in the past is to ask members for questions they want asked of the candidates. And I kind of jokingly said I learned more about what the comptroller does when I had to moderate the discussion with the comptroller candidates. And the questions that we got were about how do you prioritize the management of the retirement funds for the city? Do you divest of fossil fuel industry or gun industry? Like, so a lot of the substantive questions around policy come out through the interviews that we have and the forums we have with these candidates. So I think you're absolutely right that tonight's discussion is not about policy, but a lot of the progressive ideals and issues we care about do come out in that round of questioning. And
that's what it's about. I mean, in terms of these interviews with candidates for the various offices, I mean, in terms of, does HK Democrats have a position, say, on gun safety, for instance? I mean, and is there something that is being promoted out, to the candidates and, in these conversations on a regular basis?
So I will tell you, Tom, that in the past year, probably one of the biggest policy issues that we discussed as a club and studied at great length was on casinos. And the club has taken a position of being against casinos in Midtown Manhattan. So we have taken some positions. We have not as a club taken a lot of different positions. We tend to, say that we're progressive, by which we mean pro-choice, pro certainly LGBTQ plus rights. We have talked a little bit about housing, but have not delved into that a lot. I'm thinking, are there any other? Oh, we recently, the executive committee took a stance on the Medicare Advantage plans that the city is trying to make its retirees take. And then Kat reminds me that we also worked very hard on getting Proposition 1 passed in the state of New York. So we tend to be very selective about we say generally that we're progressive, and then we zero in on a couple of key issues because we are a small club. We can't be all things to all people. So that has, at least in the past few years, been our modus operandi.
Thank you. What is the number one priority for the club now, if I might ask? I mean, again, being new, and I don't want to, upset things, but.
Well, I have my own priority.
Okay, go ahead, Liz.
And I think that we need to Trump-proof our city and our locale and our neighborhood as much as possible. And I think we have to dig in actually more than ever locally and shore up, make sure, I'm just going to say this, politicians will always say they're for this or they're for this, and yes, we're for that. You know what? We really, they like to talk and they talk a lot, but we got to make sure they do what they say they're going to do.
Talk
And
is cheap, right?
Pardon?
Talk doesn't cost anything, right? But they
No,
have
I
to-
know, but they do, no,
Right.
all of them, it doesn't, they all do the same thing. So you have to remind them of what they're
Mhm.
there for and what we're fighting for. But I personally have been doing a lot of reading of how, in fact, just today, I finished another article about how we can Trump-proof our own little community that we live in. And it's more important than ever. I don't think we can take on, it's not a national year. It's really a city year. It's a local year. And I think we have to hone in on that. And also, Tom's, to your point, these are really good questions. But a lot of this does come, this is a small membership meeting, quite frankly. Normally, a lot of this comes from larger meetings. And you'll see, like at the forums, we solicit questions from the members, what are important to them. We try to take what is important to our club off of the membership and what do they want. Like, for instance, bike safety. We were focusing on that for a while with all the e-bikes, et cetera, et cetera. And that came from, I think, Alex. I saw Alex on the call here. It was about neighborhood safety and pedestrian safety, and he kind of led the charge on that. So it generates kind of from our membership, and it can change as to what's going on the ground. I don't know if that helps clarify anything, but anyway, the Trump proofing thing is big for me, by the way.
Yes.
Yeah, and how do we do that, Liz?
So,
How do we
well,
proof New York
I
City?
just read today. So do we have time for this or not?
Well, I
Yes,
was just going to say, another thing, Tom, is we try to, raise hands so that whoever is moderating can,
My bad. Yep.
so
Yep.
so there's not as much crosstalk. So I will, as moderator, I will recognize Carl.
Thank you, moderator. I also do want to point out, though, we've spent a lot of time talking about the forums and elections because in the structure of the Democratic Party in New York City, clubs do play sort of a fundamental role in how we organically, how the party selects and vets and supports its nominees, and also is a big part of the grassroots volunteer structure of a lot of our local races. And so it is a very important function of the clubs to participate in these, especially the local elections. And then also we are part of that party structure in New York by the election of our district leaders, which is what Paul is. So we do play some functionary roles in the actual apparatus of the Democratic Party, other than just being issue focused. So I think that's why tonight you're hearing a lot about, this function that we have to do as a club in New York City.
And you're reminding me that also another very important part of our club has been the judicial delegates. And I'm looking at Ruby Rims, who has been one of our most steadfast activists. So we play a very important role in helping to select the nominees for state Supreme Court for the state of New York, which is, as you may or may not know, not the highest court in the state, but it's the highest trial court in the state. And we played a key role 2 years ago in getting one particular judge nominated, and there we have been focused on progressive judges, and particularly women and people of color, although not exclusively. As this past year we showed, we nominated a white cis. So let's see, Kat, you have something.
And I just wanted to add that in the past year, in our federal election cycle, I worked really hard to collaborate with other clubs in New York 3 to help get Tom Swazi elected in the special election in February for New York 3. And we also as a club chose, as did many other Hkdems or some other Hkdems. And also as a club, we chose, because we wanted to really work hard to help flip the New York, at least some of the New York congressional seats back to blue. So we chose 2 candidates, a woman and a person of color, one who won, one who lost, to put our efforts behind in terms of taking buses to canvas, etc. So we didn't spread ourselves too thin. And obviously some of us canvassed for many candidates, but we chose two in particular that HKDems would get behind.
Thanks for reminding me. I mean, it was only a month ago, but yes, the club adopted Laura Gillen in New York 4 and Mondaire Jones in New York 17. And Laura Gillen won. She actually flipped it from red to blue and won by just a few thousand votes. So our efforts really did make a difference there. Obviously, we were hoping and working towards a different candidate winning the White House. But you know, our thinking was to be strategic, that if Kamala Harris won the presidency, she needed to have a Democratic majority in the House.
I canvassed in Pennsylvania for 4 weeks. It didn't do much good, unfortunately. But
well, that was, you know, and that's kind of one of the things the club does is, like, we saw how many people were going to Pennsylvania, and so we made a decision to focus a lot of our efforts on New York races. That, as it turned out, we were able to help make a difference there. And the House is so closely divided now that it's even closer than it was before. So I think that kind of work, some of it seems boring and tedious, but it's how you make progress, you know, by not giving up and going after these races up and down the ballot.
okay, thank you.
Okay. Do we have any other business before the club? I note for the exec team members that normally the fourth Wednesday is our executive meeting, and the fourth Wednesday in December is December 25th, which is Christmas Day. I suspect we're not going to want to meet on Christmas Day. We can try to figure that out through email or something, but you know, I'm wondering if, like, the 26th, the Thursday.
But then Hanukkah is right after Christmas. Just
Yep.
Hanukkah is exactly on Christmas, and the last night is New Year's Day. It's really late this year.
Aha. Okay, so obviously, I'm writing a note to myself to poll the exec team. But I think I'm pretty safe in saying we will not be meeting on December 25th. Any other news to bring? Okay.
I just wanted to say Josh Riley won as well.
That's right. Although we didn't formally adopt him, a number of members went up there for New York 19 and
multiple times, and we postcarded for him heavily as well, and he won by a sliver.
Yeah, we also postcarded for national races as well. So there's a lot to do, Tom. Not to worry.
Oh, I know. A lot to do in the next 4 years, for sure.
For sure. And I think that's one of the things that's really important about the club. As I'm stepping down as president, but I'm not going away. I will still be out petitioning and helping and volunteering in whatever way I can, and supporting whoever is the new president, because you know, the next few years are going to be tough, and we have to stick together to get through them, and not just to get through them, but also to determine what kind of country and city we live in. And I think that's in the same way that from the very beginning of this club, which started as a reaction to the first Trump election. We're in it for the long haul. We're not going away. And I think it's important, the relationships that we've made, the trust that we have built with one another through several different campaigns and issues that we've worked to come to consensus on, and we've done a lot. And I'm really proud of everything the club has accomplished and our maturity, and pleased that we'll be able to turn over the reins to a new executive committee that, new blood comes in, and old hands stick around, and that's the way we work to the future. Yes, go ahead, Paul.
If we're done that, I want to just do a plug for county committee. Because this year in the election cycle, February, we'll be petitioning for county committee. For those of you who don't know what county committee is, technically the county of New York, otherwise known as Manhattan, has a Democratic Party, and there are anywhere from 2 to 4 to 6 county committee members from each and every election district. In our part of the 75th Assembly District, we have something like 200 county committee members, and all of those seats can be filled through petitioning. For those of you who don't know what county committee is, we're going to see an important rollout of this in the Elise Stefanik district, because when Elise Stefanik moves over into the administration, that seat is open. The governor will call for a special election. The county committee members from that congressional district will convene, and they will select who will be the Democrat on the ballot to run against the Republican who's chosen to be on the ballot. Now, in that district, that's not that great of an impact. A Democrat running there may or may not win.
It's Jerry Nadler's district, right?
We are in Jerry Nadler's district. I'm talking about Elise Stefanik is going to, it's going to create a vacancy. And the vacancy is filled, the Democratic County Committee chooses who fills the seat in a special election. And we're going to see that happen in Elise Stefanik's district. But Tom, to your point, here in Jerry Nadler's district, if for some reason that seat becomes vacated, the county committee members from the congressional district election districts will convene to choose the special election Democratic candidate. That has happened with us for judge seats more often than not in this area. It doesn't happen with many other seats. But if you're interested in being on a county committee, this is a great way to not do a whole lot of work, but have a great impact. So that will be coming up in February as well.
How does one sign up for that to be on the committee?
You contact me. And I put your name on a petition, and then you circulate the petitions, and you qualify, and hopefully no one runs against you.
Okay.
So,
sign me up.
so Tom, just to give you an example, I'm in election district 8, which is the north side of West 55th Street and the south side of West 56th Street between 8th and 9th Avenues.
Okay.
And so I ran for county committee to represent that election district. You can see how granular it is. And I went and basically knocked on the doors of all my neighbors and got them to sign that petition for me. And no one ran against me. And
It's always the best race, right? When you don't have an opponent.
Right. The other way is if you don't do that, if you don't get enough petition signatures, there is a way of getting appointed. So you start off by figuring out who is in your election district. And anyway, as Paul said, you talk to Paul.
Okay. I mean, I would love to get Paul's contact information. I'm on 49th Street between 8th and 9th and have been here for a long, long time. And, if I can help out in any constructive way, I would love to.
Great.
Awesome.
We'll be calling on you, Thomas.
You know where to find me, Liz?
Duly noted, now that I have your address.
And Christine mentioned judicial delegates. We'll probably be doing that again this year as well. There's a technical term for all of this. It's called the party call, and that will be issued in January, and that will determine what seats we'll need to fill. And then we'll fill them in the February petitioning process.
Okay, Kat, you have a comment, and then Laura McGill.
Yes, I just remembered, to Tom's earlier question, I recall that we polled our membership via a membership committee survey about which policies and issues they were most interested in. So this coming year might be a good time to revisit that or something like that as well.
Okay, that would be something whoever is elected as membership director might follow up with. Laura, go ahead.
I just wanted to make the point that sometimes it is difficult in getting signatures. I live on 47th Street between 8th and 9th. And one side of the street will belong to my district and the other side won't, part of the avenue. And you're given a very small territory to try to get signatures. And it can be quite difficult. Like if you live in Manhattan Plaza, yeah, it's fine. But sometimes living on a side street, they cut it in half, which is crazy. Like, why wouldn't it be both sides of the street? So,
or the people on 10th aren't in your district, or as farther west aren't either.
And that's coming from the woman who always manages to get all the needed signatures for her to qualify for the ballot, and always comes in as one of the top 3 vote getters as a judicial delegate. So, like, come on, Laura.
So Laura, help me out on 49th Street.
So it's also, it is a great way to meet your neighbors, because there is nothing like being able to say, I'm running for office, can you help? Or I'm running for, county committee or whatever. And then people will start coming to you and saying, well, I don't like this, or I do like that. And it is that and walking the dog are the 2 best ways to meet your neighbors. All right. I see it's now 7:50. Is there any other new news or new business to bring up? All right, then I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I second.
Oh, we haven't moved
I'll
it yet.
move to adjourn.
Okay.
Okay, Paul's moving to adjourn. Liz is
And I
seconding.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Our next meeting is the 2nd of January.
good night.
Thanks so much, Christine. Happy
Good night.
holidays,
Thank
everyone.
you.